today?
Today we're going to talk about controversy in music and controversial musicians who have been a part of controversy throughout their career.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Some songs that are a little controversial in themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Videos. I think it'd be a fun little dive. This is Colin's idea. You brought this in.
My idea was actually not controversial songs.
Well, controversy in music.
Controversy in music, and what started me on that one was thinking about I think we were talking about Freddie Mercury and Queen, and when he came out and AIDS and all the rest. I mean, there was massive controversy, and at pretty close to the same time, we had Rob Halford, who also was coming out of the closet. And I mean, for big juggernauts of rock and roll to be coming out and openly being, announced worldwide as gay, I mean, that was a major stepping stone for that entire population on the planet. I mean, it was huge. I mean, they had validation. They had a subject that got brought to the forefront of everything, but holy hell, that was controversial.
And we got to remember, too, that was in, the late 80s. So, times were very, very different.
Oh, yeah.
Than, especially in Rob Halford's case, being, in heavy metal music, there wasn't a whole lot of gay in there, and it wasn't definitely wasn't a scene that was more receptive to.
You mean Manowar weren't gay?
Maybe.
I mean, it's a ballsy thing to do. That's
yeah.
In especially that genre, and at that time, I mean, it sucks that it's even considered controversial because it shouldn't be. But it is.
But at that time,
it was at that time. Yeah, I don't think it would be as controversial today.
No, nobody cares as much today. I think.
No.
When we have artists that come out now, it's just sort of like,
oh, you too?
oh, okay.
But
it's not a big deal.
But at that time, for him to come out,
yeah,
being the lead singer of a metal band, like the genre he was in,
yeah,
yeah.
Well, and it's funny though, is like when he came out, I remember it, and I was old enough to know what a gay person was, but I didn't understand a whole lot of stuff until I got older and understood more about the culture and stuff. And at first it was like, what, Rob Halford's gay? Like, no way. Like, he's badass and he's awesome and he's heavy metal. And then as I got older, it was like, oh, wait a minute, all the leather and the assless chaps and the spikes and learning these things, all this stuff is like, oh. And then I listened to some of the lyrics in his songs, and it was like, oh, okay. But at that age that I was at, I didn't have that sort of knowledge. I didn't know anything. The only thing I knew about gay was men like men and girls like girls. That was it. That was the extent of my knowledge.
And the only thing I knew about Judas Priest is that I liked it. I liked the music. I loved the sound.
I still liked it. I didn't give a shit that he was gay. Whatever. As long as he doesn't stop making badass music, I don't care.
Well, that was it. When I found out, I was pretty much, okay. I was like, whatever. I don't really care who Rob Halford's fucking behind in his own time, as long as he keeps putting out the music that he's been putting out. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But that was a big thing too. Yeah, Freddie Mercury as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything with it, and that whole AIDS.
Yeah, what
thing that went on, like him and Magic Johnson, and it changed a lot of mentalities and a lot of beliefs everywhere.
Eazy-E has big in the music world on that one,
yeah, and it was like,
I mean, it's like shit. If Freddie Mercury can get it, or if Magic Johnson, suddenly it was these high profile guys that were in it.
In the rap world, Eazy-E was Freddie Mercury, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and so when and Freddie Mercury and Eazy-E both, I mean, they got taken out. It was the bitter pill of holy shit, something's new, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the simple fact that that artists were willing to come out of the closet. I mean, number one, you got to remember too that it's not just the artist. It's not Rob Halford. It's Judas Priest.
Band,
And so how were they on that front? Because I was so young when all of that was going down. I much like you're saying, I had no interest in it. It didn't involve me. I was a fan of the product. I did not give a flying fuck about what anybody did beyond that. So, and to be blunt, I mean, there have been many other different controversies, but that was one of the ones that struck me as being, immense. I mean, Liberace was obviously,
well, there
he was
a
out
few,
and
like
everything else.
Elton John, everybody knew, but like Elton John was always out, right? Liberace was always out. So it was one of those things where like they were always out. So it didn't really matter because there was no moment of like, oh wow. But when you look at heavy metal as a genre, there wasn't anybody, right? And so for Rob to come on, especially Rob, and his status and his standing in the heavy metal community was a huge one. And when you talk about how did his bandmates feel about it and stuff, like they all knew and they supported him. And it was like, yeah, he probably had a talk with them and was like, hey, I want to say this. And I'm sure they all supported him with it. Like, it's
How old were you when he came out? Do you even remember when he came out?
13, 14, 12 maybe. I honestly
I
don't
don't even
remember.
remember how old I was. But
So apparently he came out in 1998 on MTV, broke down in tears and said, it's a wonderful moment when you walk out of the closet. Now I've done that and I've freed myself. In 98.
1998.
It struck me as being
that.
It struck me as
Wow,
being before that too.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I
Because
never even
I'm
thought about
off
it.
by like 9 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
without aging yourself, I mean, to be perfectly fair, I mean, in 98, I was 24 years old. So I suppose technically I would have been of an age to
Well,
care,
maybe
but
that-
at the same time, I just, whatever a person does in their own bedroom is up to
Because
them. I
Freddie
don't care.
Mercury was in 91 when at least 91 when the concert was and when he passed away. So
Yeah.
and I thought they were a lot closer together than that. But that's the thing. When years go by and you think about these things, you remember them differently and stuff on there. So I guess obviously I was just as dumb at 21 as I was at 12.
I just I thought it would be earlier. I remember reading about it because I didn't see it like him doing that on MTV. I remember just reading an article like Rob Halford comes out as gay, and I was just like, oh, whatever. Like it. Like I don't like it wasn't so shocking to me. Not because I had suspected that he might have been or anything like that. It was, I don't know. It was just like, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I would have been more shocked if he said, I'm leaving Judas Priest.
Well, he did do that too.
Yeah, but that would have been, yeah, but like, it's,
Surprise.
yeah, like it's,
Yeah, they made one album without him. And
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't
that
a
good.
good
No.
one.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did think for sure it was before 98.
Although they got a good movie out of it. So, that whole him leaving movie Rockstars.
Oh, yeah,
based
yeah,
on
yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Owens and
Yeah. That was a good movie.
it was a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call back to the soundtracks that we didn't talk about the Rockstar movie soundtrack. Which is a good one.
I don't think I've ever heard that soundtrack.
It's good.
Well, same with the Queen movie. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, welcome to like the Elvis movie that just recently came out. Welcome to like all those different movies. I mean, they're not going to have a movie about the band if the band sucks. So the soundtrack's got to be something good.
Yeah.
So does that mean there won't be a Coldplay movie? Yes.
Oh, we knew that was coming out sometime.
Fuck Coldplay.
Why would you want to fuck them? I thought you didn't like them.
No.
So apparently, Freddie came out to Mary in '76. Told her he was bisexual. So that's pretty early on. Yeah.
Well, and Freddie didn't.
Being homosexual, I think in the States, clear across the States, was illegal at that point in time. I'd have to look that up.
Oh,
but
really? That was it?
It is truly illegal. I mean,
It definitely
some
wasn't
points.
supported and encouraged, that's for sure. But I think with Freddie too is like he didn't necessarily hide it amongst like people within the industry and people he was with, but it wasn't overly out there in the public either. But he wasn't hiding it. He just did whatever he wanted to do and lived his life that he did. And like, now we're in a place where it doesn't really matter. I remember in Ricky Martin set up his press release and he did his whole big thing, and it was like, oh, you got to watch this. Ricky Martin has an announcement, and then he said he was gay, and it was just like, okay. Like, we already knew.
Ricky Martin's gay?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I know, big surprise there, right?
No
yeah. But it was like this thing where he made it a big thing, and it just it wasn't anymore. Like it doesn't matter anymore.
Dude, send out a tweet.
It's like, you want to surprise me? Like, record a good album. That'll shock me.
Mm-hmm.
But say something like whatever. I don't care. Just play good music, or just be honest. Like, just be happy. Like, whatever you got to do, just be happy with who you are and what you want to be. Like, fuck everybody else. Like, it's kind of frustrating sometimes that people get treated that way still. And it's hard, like, having these conversations sometimes and trying to go back in time about how it was viewed then, but we're talking about it now. It's really hard to mix the two worlds, because mentalities and beliefs are so much different now, and acceptance is so much different now than it was
for the most part.
Then. Yeah, for the most part. Like, I'd say a good, like, 80% of people have grown up.
You got a lot more faith in people than I do.
Still a lot of, but I mean, some people are just assholes, and that's just the way it is. So.
And laws are laws, and they change slowly. They don't generally change quickly. But I mean, all things said and done, when it comes to a lot of things, I mean, and we're getting definitely off of music topic here, but the sexual rights movements in the world have come a long way. I mean, all things said and done, I was just reading, sodomy was illegal across most states all the way up until 1955. Just what's happening between a consenting man and woman, or man and man, or woman and woman, doesn't matter. Illegal up until then, and even up till 2003, same-sex marriage is illegal across 14 states. Illegal, like, not just discouraged, not just no, illegal. Like, these are not very distant things. Like, really and truly, they're not. I mean, all things said and done, you know. We were driving in cars, we were flying in planes, we were putting people on the moon, we were doing all these different things.
And you can't bang your buddy in the butt.
No, apparently not. Now, to be blunt, you can't bang me in the butt. I'm putting that out there right now. Just
maybe I don't want to.
I'm hoping you don't.
Okay.
So.
The sexual tension in this room right now is
just got higher. Rob's like, "What about me?
No,
where do I fit into this?"
Leave me off to the side here.
Rob's looking at the list of topics.
Let's move on to.
He's like, "This isn't on my list. This isn't on my list." I need
Which
an
brings
adult.
us to Jerry Lee Lewis. Speaking of things that were illegal at one point.
Yeah, he married his 13-year-old cousin.
Dude.
Well, that's still not exactly right.
No, and I don't. You can't.
It doesn't matter how much time passes. We're not accepting that one.
I don't care when this happened. It's like a grown man marrying a 13-year-old girl.
Okay.
Like,
now, to be perfectly blunt, if you go back in days, back a little ways, arranged marriages used to happen all the time, where kids that were basically 12, 13 years old would be married to each other.
Yes.
And it was expected that the girl would start to produce children right away. I mean, that was normal of number of years. Obviously, we've come a long way. We've recognized that they're still adolescents. They're still developing. There are all these different things. But humanity at the time needed that, because you had to have enough people on the farm, because a disease came through and knocked out half of you. You had to have enough bodies to be able to survive. Literally, it was that.
Yeah, you're creating your own workforce.
Yeah, literally. And to be perfectly blunt, we're one good war away. I mean, with all the tensions with Russia and everything else, from going right back to that. The biggest difference that we're going to have if we go to a massive war like that is that we're going to be so intensely screwed, because nobody knows how to survive anymore. Technologically, we have gone up and gone up and gone up. The people at the, people who work for slaughterhouses and bring cows through and everything else, they're getting a bolt through their head, and next thing you know, they're chopped up and they're on a delivery truck and going to a grocery store. That's one thing, but they're not out hunting. They're literally on a farm doing this stuff. Well, we have a big enough war and enough people go away and those plants fall and nobody knows how to, keep those plants working. We now, potentially don't have vehicles. There's so many things. We're back to caveman. We're not teaching kids how to write properly these days. So without technology, where are we going to be? And that's now. Imagine if it's 30 or 40 years from now when something really and truly happens. Because my generation, I at least went out hunting. I did that with my dad. I know how to, I grew up in the Yukon as a young child, going out hunting and fishing and camping. And I'm pretty sure that I could probably survive for a while as I hone my skills. But there's a lot of people who I know
for a solid 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people who camping means pull behind fifth wheel trailer into the big honking parking lot and, just try not to bump your neighbors too close. And that's camping. They don't know anything about survival. That's working hard. This might sound really strange, but our homeless population would probably be the overachievers amongst us because they're used to surviving. It's such a weird thing, but we are literally one war away from that. Because who's going to teach all the kids of today, as the saying goes, all the different snowflakes out there, who's going to teach them how to not melt? So it's a bit of a weird thing. So, but while we're on the topic of, Jerry Lewis and his 13-year-old, we might get back to where that's normal because we have to have enough of a workforce.
I'd love to get back to where that's normal.
I would hope
No,
not.
Okay. Even back then, it was pretty controversial.
Yeah.
What makes you say it was controversial?
Well, there was a lot of outreach. Now, where the state that he did it in, I believe, was in Tennessee, if I remember correctly.
Stat rape in Alberta is 14.
Well, okay, it doesn't matter what the law is. It's a general perception of it, right?
A grown man dating a kid. Whether it's legal, except it's wrong in any way, though.
All right, so I read a phrase not too long ago, which is quite accurate and quite true, is just because something's illegal does not make it moral, right? Yeah, morality and legality are two different measurements.
True. And that's why this particular case was controversial way back then. Because even though what he did was legal in the state that he did it in, there were still a lot of other states and a lot of even people with his own state that didn't agree with it. And just like you said, just because it was the law and it was okay and it was, on there, that we're just supposed to be okay with it. No, we're not okay with it.
Well, there's a reason why laws change. You have to have enough people who are not okay with something in order to then band together in order to push for legislation to be changed and then affect the change of the law. But then laws try to find the halfway distance. So if 13 is not cool, then is 14. Or then is 15. And they try to find that halfway because they don't want to go all the way because there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to be pissed off that, that you've changed it.
Oh, damn it. Now I can't marry a teenager? No, you fucking can't, Bernie. You just can't. Stop.
Bernie, that's specific. As far as I'm concerned.
I just picked that name. That just sounded like a... I don't want to alienate any Bernies listening to the podcast, but sorry. No. It just sounds like a dirty name.
Bernie Sanders would thank you on that one.
The president?
He's not the president, dude. No, Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
He's up in the political echelons, but he's very definitely up in the liberal side of things.
Old dude.
He's an old dude. You know that meme with the dude sitting with his legs crossed?
Oh, the grumpy guy with the mitts?
The mitts. Yeah.
Fuck that guy. Probably listens.
He's actually very progressive. He's actually a really cool guy. He doesn't take a lot of shit, and he basically
doesn't have good circulation.
No. Well, certainly not wearing all those mitts, but he's also elder. But where were we? You were talking about something?
Well, just it's not going to be right. And the controversial part of that, even way back then, is everybody else's society just looking at it, deciding that no, this isn't okay, and it's your cousin.
Right? I even forgot that they were even related too. That
what depth
more
of cousin?
Fucked up.
And it doesn't matter what depth it is.
It does. It's only illegal. It's only illegal with a first cousin.
I'm not talking about illegal. I don't give a shit if it's legal or not. It's still just fucking wrong. It's gross.
Brother and sister is really gross. Parent-child, super gross. Cousin, if you're third cousin, shit, you could be you could never know that person. There are cases where people have actually dated and married their
You're
cousin,
right.
not even knowing
And
that
you
they
know
were
what?
cousins until
Those people get a pass. But when you know it's your cousin, and you know she's 13,
Yeah.
and you're a grown man, and
That's a
you should
different
know
story.
better, and you still choose to do it, that kind of
That's called
makes
grooming.
you a piece of shit.
It should put you on a watch list of some sort.
You should be.
Yeah.
well, that's called grooming.
Now, the even more horrible part about it is he made some really good fucking music.
About that,
And I like listening to Jerry Lee Lewis music, even though he's a dirtbag.
well, there's a lot of music about young girls that are not
Yeah.
necessarily legal. Pick
Just
a
the
song.
other
Pick
day-
a song or two from that.
Winger has a song called 17.
Yeah.
Talking about she's only 17 and,
Yeah.
and going on. And I remember listening to it on the way to work just the other day. And I was like, holy fuck. Like,
Motley
this
Crue.
is dirty.
Motley Crue
Yeah.
as well. I mean,
Had a
they're-
few.
well, what was the song about Tracy Lords?
And
She's
Too
only
Fast for Love.
16, but she's the really reason of. Fuck, what is it, that song? I can't remember. I'd have to look at it. It's on the Girls album. I'll pull it up.
Could be.
You guys keep talking. I'm going to pull out
Yeah.
shit.
What
We
else?
got
What
Jerry
else?
Lee Lewis. He fucked around. We're done with that guy for now. You know, there's other, and the controversy is a funny word because some things are more controversial than others. Some mean more things than other things, and it's like, you know, why do we have it? Some things we look at now is like, well, how does that make sense? And one thing that, just on this topic, on the top of my head, was when the Doors were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and for the line in "Light My Fire," it was, "Baby, we can't get much higher." And he wasn't allowed to say that because they're talking about promoting drug use and stuff. So they're like, you have to change this. And Jim Morrison didn't want to. And I love the way they did it in the Oliver Stone movie, The Doors. And he just said, "Baby, bite my wire," which is probably worse than "Baby, let's get higher." You know,
Yeah.
now that you're talking about smoking a joint to giving him a blowjob on national TV. But just the way he was like,
All in the
"You know
name
what?
of.
Fuck you. I'm going to do this anyways." And the amount of backlash that they got for that, and they weren't on any other TV shows for a long time in the U.S. because of that, and all these other
Good for
problems
them.
they had. Yeah.
Good for them.
And, you know, Jim Morrison getting arrested at their show in L.A., like that night or the next night from that, and all these things, all because he said that. You know, and, it was
And nothing but respect for these bands who refuse to censor their shit.
yeah.
For like, it's like, if you know these are my lyrics, don't have me on your show.
Mhm.
Don't ask me to come on if you don't like what I sing.
Yeah.
Like,
And
why
it
would you
really
ask
wasn't
Jim
that
Morrison
bad,
to come
but-
on and then tell him to change his lyrics? Why not just maybe tell him to perform another song then or something?
Yeah.
Don't
Pick a
tell him to.
different song.
Yeah, pick a different song, but
Well,
don't.
except "Light My Fire" was like their big hit.
Yeah,
That's
so let them
that's what
perform
they
their
were
big hit.
promoting,
Like,
but yeah.
it was, what was it, the 60s? Like, it was, right? Late
Yeah,
60s when he
late
was on the.
60s.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
was drug use like a secret or something? Like,
No,
right? Like, of course they're high.
Yeah.
Like,
But TV
why
was a
aren't
different
you?
thing. But TV was a different thing too, right?
True,
So if you're
true.
going to be on TV, now you're in everybody's living room, and now the morality police are going to be out, right?
True, but you are choosing to access their reality, the Doors. You
Mhm.
are the fan. They don't owe you what your perception. Like, this is what they are. If you know,
But
like,
back then, though, so the Ed Sullivan Show was hugely popular. And
It's a
back
gateway
then, they
show.
didn't have a lot of TV channels. There
right,
wasn't many,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So a lot of families watched the EdSullivan Show. They
Right.
watched the whole
Absolutely.
thing, like
Yeah.
because that's
True.
That's
Well,
all that was on.
And the Ed
right?
Sullivan Show is the gateway to being a star. I mean,
Yeah.
so many people got their start by appearing on. If you got on the Ed Sullivan Show, you were likely going
Yeah.
to be a star.
Yeah.
And so people wanted to know who was coming up, who was going to be the next person, and so that. I mean, that
And
was
they
huge.
knew they're going to have a
Yeah.
whole bunch of kids that are watching because of the Doors, like teenagers. When I say
Mhm.
kids,
Yeah.
I mean like teenagers. They're going to be watching because they're like, oh, I get to see the Doors on here. But they also know that their parents are watching with them.
yeah.
So for a line like that, they need to do that so they don't have all these parents phoning
Mhm.
and being all pissed off. They don't have their advertisers pissed off, wanting to pull their
What
money.
a
and all
weird
this stuff,
time,
right?
eh?
But that still
Like-
happens
It's
today.
still like
I
that.
know,
It
but
still
like,
happens
advertisers
but
today.
control.
instead of calling the show and being mad, how about talking to your kids? and explaining to them.
That has been something that could have happened at any point ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people tend to point outside because they want to have this nice, pillowed room, the effect for the world, and pretend that the world doesn't have harsh lines and doesn't have all these different things. And let's, keep our kids in this cotton candy world that isn't real and sustain that as long as possible. Yeah. I said to Aiden, I think he was probably 5, 6. And I was like, you've got a kid's account on Spotify, so it's not going to have swears. But when you ride with mom or dad, you're going to be listening to music that is going to have swears. We don't want you, when you're listening on your own, to have those swears because we don't want you to just instantaneously have that as part of your vocabulary. We don't want you saying that all the time. So when you're in our vehicles, you're going to hear swears. That's just part of life. I'm not going to pretend that swears don't exist. But you're too young to be saying them because you don't necessarily understand them. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a realistic way of looking at things.
And the way you just explained that's just perfectly said. Like, that's just being honest. And I try to stay out of topics that involve being a parent because I don't know shit about being a parent. I'm not a parent. Like, I'm just talking about how I would go about it if I was a parent, right? This is what they sing about. This is what they're doing.
Well, and much like Colin, I have the same thing with Gabby as well. And we listen to, there's a song by Pink called Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it is an amazing song. And I think all girls should listen to that song. It's very positive. It's very uplifting. It's very girl positive. It's an amazing song. And one of the lines in there is never think you're less than fucking perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's a good line. And when she uses the word fucking in there, it gives it so much more power to that line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've had the talk with Gabby that when we are in the car together and you're singing along to this, you can say fuck because that's the word in the song. If you're singing along to it in the car, you say it. And we had to talk about why she uses it, why she does. And there's sometimes she'll want to hear the song without the F word. And other times in the car she will. So in the house, we play the censored version for her. Mm-hmm. But in the car, and it's only because in the car I use my Amazon Music and Amazon doesn't have the clean version on it. But that's the only reason why she hears that on there. Yeah. But she knows the difference in it. She knows the reason for it in that song. And she also knows she can say it as long as she's singing along with me in the car.
So does she seem disappointed when she can't say it when she's singing?
Not at all. No, she would much rather listen to the clean version.
And do you think that has to do with the fact that you spoke to her like an adult and you explained everything?
Yeah.
That's
Tasha
what I mean.
We try and tell her about swears, and we explain them to her. Yeah. And right now, Gabby's on this big kick, giving me shit for saying the F word all the time. She's like, you said the F word, and I'm just a kid. And it's like, yeah, well, you're going to hear a lot of things, honey. Yeah. Sorry, I'm your dad. It's just what's going to happen.
And while she's a kid, he's not. Yeah. And so that perception needs to be there, too.
And so it seems to me, and I'm not there, but just based on what you're saying, like you let her say this word when she's singing with the song, but it's like you de-escalated the situation by just explaining to her.
Yeah, there's a time and a place.
Yeah,
and
it seems so simple. So why can't other people do that with other bands and music?
Just with that song, if you listen to the clean version, that's the only difference. Yeah. The only difference is that word is taken out, right? Yeah. It still has the same message. It still has the same powerful meaning to it. But when she says you're less than perfect versus you're less than fucking perfect, it changes the feeling of it.
Yeah.
And it helps it more. And I mean, if Gabby wants to look at Pink as a role model, I am absolutely okay with that because Pink's awesome. She's a good role model. Yeah. She has a lot of very good values about herself, and I totally support
awful music, but
she doesn't.
She makes terrible music. But I'm not her demographic.
You don't want to get the party started?
No. But the music she makes is not for me, so it's not.
So because you're not perfect. Rob.
So far,
far
well, no,
perfect.
He's not fucking perfect.
No, he's not that either.
So I'm steadily putting together a concert that's going to feature Pink, Collective Soul, and Coldplay.
Oh,
and just It'll be like the greatest thing to take you guys to.
Yeah,
if I
Well,
get
can Coldplay go on first then? So hopefully I'll be in the merch line or something. I don't have to fucking deal with it.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Or put them on last and then I can just leave early.
I literally don't have any band that I really just dislike, heartily dislike. I don't. That's the funniest thing. But you guys definitely have your opinions.
Well, I mean, when I say dislike, it's not like if Collective Soul walked up to me and I met them, it's not like I'm going to be like, fuck you, man. Like, you fucking, like, it's just.
Well, neither would I.
Yeah, their music sucks, but it's like, whatever. Like, not everything.
So why do you different topic always? I mean, we were talking about controversial shit, but
That's a controversial opinion. So how can you not like Collective Soul?
What is it about it that turns you off?
You should just shine, Rob.
It's just.
It's just the world he knows.
It's just boring.
You know, if you just listen to them, you might gel a bit with them.
Yeah.
Don't let your sister
Keep
cry.
going, guys. Don't stop. You're on a roll.
It's in your hair. Gel?
But
We were talking about that earlier. It was legal up until about 1955. Yeah.
But they're just boring, generic fucking music.
They're good.
If you think they're good, cool. Like, it's, I mean,
I was curious to know whether or not it was like the slight Christian bent to them, if that even registered anywhere.
No, I mean, I try to keep, like, I don't like Christian rock. I try to keep religion out of the music I listen to.
So you're not a Striper fan?
No. I don't like religion in anything in my life, really. But I just keep it out of me. But no, if they did have that Christian aspect of their music, but made good music, I would listen to it.
Okay.
I mean, that Gel song is not bad. That's
Gel's
about
good.
it. That's
Shine
about
is
it.
good.
Shine's
December's
awful.
good.
Shine.
December's
is great.
fantastic.
December's
Shine
fantastic.
is Shine.
Precious Declaration.
Is Shine? Oh no, Precious Declaration's fucking awful.
What?
Is Shine the big hit they had?
One of them, yeah.
The first one, right? Like,
Well,
The
very
first was
one
Gel.
was December.
no.
Well, yeah, Gel then December.
No,
December was bigger than
What was
Gel.
the first hit on their first album? Like the big hit? Was that Shine?
It would have been Shine.
Yeah, Shine. That one's fucking awful. I hate that fucking song.
I think Shine and then Gel.
Yeah, no, because Gel wasn't the first. Because Gel came from the Jerky Boys soundtrack, right?
Maybe.
Pretty sure that's where
Yeah,
that.
Shine was on Hints and Allegations and Things Left Unsaid.
Yes, that one.
Gel
Rev
was
and
on-
Let Your Light Shine.
Yeah,
right?
Gel was
that
on
fucking
the
song.
Blue album. I can't remember
Yeah.
what it's called.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just called Collective Soul.
The one that had the yellow case.
That was like a blue.
It was a blue insert with a yellow case and made it look
Yeah.
green.
Could be, yeah. Precious Declaration is a good song. Discipline Breakdown is a good song. Heavy's a good song. Now is a good song.
None of those are good songs.
Why Part 2 is a good song.
They're
The
all
World I
awful.
Know is one of my
World I Know
favorites.
is a good one.
No, those are all fucking awful.
Well, you were fucking listening to Collective Soul on the way home tonight then.
Well, I'm sure we are.
Where the River Flows is another good one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just not my thing. Just like Coldplay's not your thing.
Yeah, but Coldplay really does suck.
So does fucking Collective Soul.
Well, not as bad as Coldplay.
I don't know.
You guys need to uncork your panties. There, it's a little bit much. Besides, we're talking controversy. We're not talking
controversy.
preferences. Preferences are not controversial unless, of course,
Don't agree with them. So how about this big controversy, the PMRC?
That's only a big
Parents-
controversy if you're Dave Mustaine. At this point in life, anyways. Yeah.
Dick Clark is no longer the oldest teenager in the world.
That's pretty much it,
Dave
right?
Mustaine.
Well, when we saw Megadeth, how long ago was that? 6 years ago? 7 years ago?
Oh, at least.
And right before, what song was it? In My Darkest Hour?
Could be.
Yeah, he came out and did the whole rant about the PMRC and how they get you down. And
Yeah, don't you hate it when your mom's just like on your ass? And I was like, dude, you're like 56.
50, yeah. Man.
You're not relating to any of the. And I'm looking around like there's not even really that many teenagers in here.
I'm pretty
either.
sure that the only people that are in here that know who the PMRC are the ones that are trying to sit down back there because, they don't want to stand for a rock show anymore.
But it's funny how what they tried to do with censoring the music and making, those stickers on there to keep it out of the hands of children. Only
Those
made
rating
me
systems.
want to buy.
But those
that
rating
album
systems,
even more.
those rating systems are still in place. So they
are.
were successful in their
Yeah.
drive, not to the point of what they were after, but I mean, welcome to the laws, right? Laws
Yeah.
only change by a certain degree.
Yeah.
So they changed.
Well, and I think once they
those things.
stopped their heavy-handed, like, you must, and this has to be the way it was, and be like,
God
these
bless-
are some pretty good guidelines.
God bless Dee Snider. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
Oh, that was awesome when they were like, when they saw Dee Snider walk in, and they're like, oh, this is perfect. Like, what's this guy gonna do? And he just sat down and fucking schooled all of them and them congressmen, and they realized, like, oh shit, that long-haired
Yeah.
metal dude, like, he's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And like every couple of years or so, I just go on YouTube and I just watch that.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Speaking of
those
which, we'll have to
stickers they
link that
put,
too.
yeah, those stickers that they put out, it just made me want that album. Like there's
Oh, yeah.
there's certain albums that I have only because
What's
the parental advisory sticker on there,
the
explicit
okay.
content.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that
up
was the-
until
that was the
then,
big
I
result
didn't
of
even
the-
know.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
it. Once that sticker was on, I was like, oh, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
Like, I want that.
I think it had the adverse reaction or
Yeah.
effect. But yeah, I mean, they were after. They had a real issue with pretty much all long hair bands. I think anybody
Well, it
on the
wasn't
lipstick
just
side
them,
of
though,
things.
because on that list there was only 2 metal bands.
Oh yeah. Two Live
So, like,
Crew went to court.
2 Live
Over
Crew
the
was on
whole
there.
censorship,
Cyndi Lauper
Luke
was on
did.
there twice.
Yeah.
Madonna was on there. Like Cyndi Lauper's song "Bop" or "She Bop," because it's about female masturbation, and they're like, oh god, like females can't enjoy sex. Females can't have pleasure.
Well, the biggest
Like,
thing
well,
behind
sure they can. They're just not allowed to sing about it. But like, fuck
yeah.
you, "She Bop's" a good song.
The biggest-
Listen to it.
The
Fucking
biggest
sing
thing
about it.
behind that whole
Yeah.
PMRC movement was it was fairly puritanical, right? So most of the things that they were after was not necessarily swearing, was not necessarily a whole bunch of different things, but anything that was sexually oriented.
Yeah.
And that was where there was a huge thing. And
But they were misguided on so many things where they just didn't understand anything about it. Like they went after
Yeah.
Ozzy for his Suicide Solution song
Mhm.
when that song was written about a friend of his who died from drinking himself to death. And it was like, if you took the time to listen to the words, you'd realize it's not about what you think it's about. But you saw the word suicide and you fucking blew a gasket
Yeah.
over
All right.
it, you know? Like,
Another topic for another time is discussing rock icons who died, like Bon Scott and so forth, from an early death, and where would the music be if they didn't?
yeah. Yeah. But also, like, Twisted Sister and that whole thing, they were under fire for the song Under the Blade, which is about a surgery, like a
Yeah.
throat surgery.
Yeah.
Right? And when he went on there, and especially talking to Al Gore and calling his wife a pervert, saying, you know, like, if you listen to the song looking for sexual innuendos, you're going to find them. But if you
Yeah.
listen to the song looking for medical innuendos, you're going to find those too, because that's what it was written about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, you still can't say that. And I was like, but say what? Like, you interpreted it to mean this. Your wife did that. He's like,
Yeah.
am I the dirty one or is she? And it
Mhm.
was just awesome. And it was like, yeah, it was like
Yeah.
she wanted to hear something dirty. Like, she wanted that. And she did.
Yeah.
She found it. But it was like, well, what's wrong
Innuendos-
with you? If you go search, where's
Yeah.
your fucking mind?
Innuendo is innuendo. If you're putting your own meaning behind it, don't blame me. I mean, I've often said to people around me, like, if you can be upset all you want with something that comes out of my mouth, but be upset with the words that come out of my mouth, not with what you take as a meaning from that, because I can only control my words. I cannot control how you're going to interpret them.
Yep.
And that generally starts another argument. But it is what it is. So, but with was it PMRC, or was it just various different people who were coming up with, like, with WASP, you know, we are sexual perverts and all the rest of that stuff? And
Oh, that was all like parent groups as well. Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily PMRC, but there was like a whole other parent group that did that. There was some kid killed himself, and he had a Judas Priest cassette in his stereo. So they're like, well, Judas Priest killed him.
Mhm.
And it was like, no, they didn't. Like,
No.
He had issues going on at home, and unfortunately, he chose to end his life that way. And he was also a metalhead. You know, like, they don't go hand in hand. I've been listening to metal music my whole life. I've never wanted to kill other people. I've never wanted to kill myself.
But if you
I
knew
listened
you were
to Judas
dying,
Priest, I listened to Ozzy Osbourne.
but if you knew you were dying and you were told, all right, you got about 10 minutes, pick a song.
It would be a metal song for sure. And probably Orion. because I got 10 minutes. Yeah, I'd take Orion.
Orion,
It would
nice.
fill that in. Yeah.
Nice. What about you?
Or
What
mind
did
you,
do?
Freebird. Freebird would.
I'll go with The End by The Doors.
Really?
Yeah. Slow burn.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not In the End by Linkin Park.
No, definitely not.
Maybe a little in the nose, but
Yeah,
Not Shine by Collective Soul.
definitely not. Well, by the time that comes on, I hope I'm already 6 feet under.
I brought
So-
Aiden into the world with Master of Puppets. I'd go with Master.
That's a good one.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to be around when he's on his way out. God help it. Knock on everything around me. So I can only control. Ideally, I have the option when it's my turn, and then I can choose.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those parent groups, they get a little crazy, and instead of talking to their kids and trying to understand what is going on and dealing with that, they get scared of what they don't know, so they just lash out and like, well, we'll just stop this. Like, so
Yeah.
my kid's now wearing all black, and they have a Marilyn Manson shirt, and they're drawing like upside down crosses on their books. So instead of talking to my child and trying to figure out what's going on in their world and just showing a fucking interest in your child,
Yeah.
instead you're going to spend all your time and energy getting other moms to believe your bullshit and then protest a Marilyn Manson concert
Which,
instead of having a conversation with your kid.
and we both know when you tell teenagers you can't do something,
They just want to do it even
you're-
more.
They're just going to be more into it,
Mhm.
right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
You know, like the Columbine thing, when they're like, well, Marilyn Manson is responsible for Columbine. No.
Really? I never even heard
Two
that.
kids with guns are
Yeah, yeah.
responsible for Columbine.
Marilyn Manson's probably responsible for all kinds of other fucked up shit, but not that.
Not that one, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Marilyn
and
Manson's
that's that whole
responsible
thing,
for
you know,
a certain
it's
level
like-
of androgyny, and that's pretty much the
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
crime in Marilyn Manson's book.
But it's like just because those kids listen to Marilyn Manson doesn't mean that
No.
they did that, you know. And
It's
like,
always
but those kids also listen to other music as well that they don't say anything about. Like,
It's always
they just
something.
picked Marilyn.
if
and
it's
like
it's Marilyn Manson, it's movies, it's music, it's always there's always a scapegoat.
But people have always wanted something to blame. I mean,
Exactly.
always. And
Exactly.
people, humanity on a whole, has always wanted either something to blame or something to explain. So when they want to blame something, that's because they disagree with the result. When they want to explain something, then it's got to be some higher power. So hence religion and, you know, having, well, God takes care of the sunrises and God takes care of feeding the crops and God takes care of these things. And, oh, God's got a big plan for everybody and all these different things. But then when it's something that they don't want or don't understand, or it's an influence that's affecting something else, then you have to blame something. And now that thing represents all the ultimate, devil worshipping and everything else.
and it's easier to blame shit you don't understand rather than try to understand
But
shit you don't understand.
But when you're looking at PMRC stuff, right? I mean, welcome to baby boomers. So baby boomers were raised by the silent generation, war-torn, depression era, all these other people. And the baby boomers on a whole were the last generation raised by moms in the house and everything else. Then you have the baby boomers who, that was when it became far more acceptable for women to be in the workplace and for kids to be taken care of by babysitters and all the rest of this stuff. And so the parents who were baby boomers grew up in the era where kids were to be seen, not heard. Sit in the corner and shut up. That's your job. You're a child. That's what you do. You're not sitting at the table with the grown-ups and talking like a human being because you're not one yet. Literally, that's how they were raised. And then you've got them being the parents of a generation, and because they were all working and kids were being taken care of by daycares and everything else, they had no insight into what was going on. They had no control over what was going on. Once they got off work, they wanted to do something for themselves because when else are they going to do something by themselves, for themselves? And so they didn't want to engage their kids because in their minds, kids were like they were, there to be seen, not heard. So it's easier to blame their influences, not engage with your children, and try and figure out your own rationalization, jam it down everybody else's throat. Whereas us kids who grew up in that, we were the children who grew up almost without parents. We're the kids who basically grew up. There's the door. Come back when the sun's down.
Came home when you were hungry.
Yeah.
Well, growing up
Forget to poop.
growing up way up north, it was come home when the streetlights are on.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Which they're not on from like May to September, they don't come on.
Yeah, but then they're on from about 4 in the afternoon, if not even 1 in the afternoon, depending on the time of year.
Balances it out.
Yeah.
Like streetlights are on, you got to get home. It's like it's 1:30. Yeah, well, it's November. Sucks to be you. Get home.
Yeah, but at that point in time, it's also minus 35, so you don't want to be outside playing around for too long.
Yeah.
But welcome being way the hell up north. But and that of course was walking up hills to school both ways and everything else.
We had dog sleds, Rob, when we went to school.
That sounds pretty awesome, actually.
We didn't have dog sleds.
We didn't have dog sleds.
Well, some did, but not all of us.
No, we had skidoos, but I didn't get to take those to school.
Yeah.
However, but I mean, welcome to the generational differences. PMRC was a natural occurrence. I mean, I can't think of anything that would fit a boomer mentality more than the PMRC when their kids are achieving that age where the parents don't have control. And the kids aren't sitting in a corner behaving and shutting up. And here's these things that they don't gravitate to. I mean, this is the group of people who, the women of that generation were the young girl fans of the Beatles who were screaming their heads off when the Beatles landed. And yet we're telling their kids they shouldn't be listening to metal music.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very dichotic. I mean, the two things aren't necessarily compatible with each other, but welcome to being, how conflicted must that generation have been? Like they had no control in their perception of control. Like it would have been really, really, really frustrating to be them. I try to put myself in that position and think about how frustrating and how limiting things would be if you were raised in one way and you were trying to affect a change in the next generation because you were now embodying the women's lib movement. You were embodying freedom of self-expression. You're all these different things, but then your kids are going further than what you were comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like, every single generation tends to push, but I mean, go back into the 1800s and not too many generations were pushing terribly hard, right? Mass media, globalization, all these different things have really changed society a lot. And there's been a lot of growth in the last, think of the last 10 years, think of the last 20 years, think of 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Think of any 20-year gap in any of that period of time in the last 150 years, and you're going to see massive changes, like massive changes. I mean, think about when the car came out. I mean, you had all kinds of people boycotting the cars, and why would you do that when you got a perfectly good horse, and all this stuff. And it's like, it changes. Society changes with time. But music is one of those things, and it's a social consciousness that I think, what was that? I'm missing the quote entirely, but it was something like, music is how the world feels. So there's I need to find that quote. I'll find it and then bring it up.
Music is a way that all kids can speak with other kids and bond over and have that. Like you being born in Portugal and me being born in Canada. As children, we both could have liked the same music, and even though we couldn't communicate, we can listen to the same music. And we can bond over that same music. If I see you wearing an AC/DC shirt, and you see me wearing an AC/DC shirt, we don't have to be able to talk. We can just look at each other and be like, right?
Yeah.
We
it's a universal
have that.
language.
Yeah, and we know that. And with the censorship and stuff, I guess I'm okay with the ratings. I think there needs to be some sort of guidelines. But as parents, you also have to do it yourself. Like me and Tash decide what Gabby does and doesn't watch. Things that we expose her to and let her see. And there's certain ways that we want to raise her and how we want to show her growing up and stuff. And I think it's where the censorship of them stepping in and saying, we don't agree with this, so nobody gets to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that.
Right.
It should be you choose that. Now, would I let Gabby listen to the Two Live Crew? Fuck no. Not right now.
No.
When she's older, sure.
Yeah.
All right, 16 or something, she wants. All right,
in any
fine,
event,
let's listen to it. But I want to make sure you understand what you're listening to. Just like my mom did with me. I wanted that album, and I couldn't buy it because it had that sticker on it. So I told my mom, I really want this album. Will you come with me? We can. Like, I have money from my paper route. Like, will you buy it for me so I can have it? And we
Mhm.
listened to some of it on the way home because she wanted to know what it was. And she just looked at me and she's like, this is fucking stupid. For one. Because the first song we listened to was The Fuck Shop. Or no, not The Fuck Shop, Dirty Nursery Rhymes.
Yeah.
And she was just like, oh my God, like, this is just stupid. She's like, why do you even want to listen to this? And it wasn't like the language or anything. She was just like, why? But then she was like, well, as long as you know that this isn't real. Like, that's not real life. It's just music. And you're not going to talk like that at home. And I was like, all right. And then, so she helped diffuse that and take away any of like the danger that I might have with it, and like what the PMRC is all worried about. And then I just listened to it, and you know what? I listened to it maybe about a week at that time, and then the shock factor got old quickly. I wasn't. It didn't matter anymore.
It's amazing.
Because it was like
it's amazing.
There was nobody I was pissing off with it, so it was like.
Yeah.
And same thing with all my metal music that I listened to was like some of it was, I was angry, and just a rebellious kid, and I was like, people need to know. Right, like my mom needs to know that I'm angry and I'm rebellious, and I'm like blasting loud music and stuff. And then it's like she has rock music in her collection. She had Alice Cooper and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, and it was like she just said to me one day, she's like, "You don't think that I was a teenager?"
Oh God,
like,
I've said those words myself literally 3 days ago.
Like, oh yeah.
So you think
you were one time?
So you think that I don't understand what it's like to be a teenager? Well, I understand what it's like to be a teenager. I also understand what it's like to move out of the house. I also understand what it's like to be 20 and struggling. I also understand many different things that you have yet to come to, but you will. And having
my advice.
Having that conversation with my 16-year-old and saying, if you don't think that I remember being 16, like I remember it vividly. Well, in his defense,
it was quite a while ago.
Oh, it was, but I'm not Alzheimer's. Well, actually, if I were, I'd probably remember it clear because it'd be like yesterday. But like we had different influences. Yeah. We had different things going on. The times and the people and the technology and everything else were different. Yeah. Clothing styles were definitely a little sketchier back then. Although seeing how my 16-year-old's dressing today, not that much sketchier.
Well, and somebody was talking about like yoga pants today, and they're like, "Oh, dude, that sucked when you were younger. You guys didn't have yoga pants and stuff."
Sure, we
like,
did.
No, but we had these things called spandex that were just as tight and revealing as your yoga pants are now.
Yoga pants are more structured.
The only thing is, like the spandex, they weren't black and gray like they are today. They were bright fucking pink and bright green, and they were horrendous colors. They were ugly, but they sure made that butt look nice. Like,
just remember. Spandex pants and yoga pants. Yoga pants are more structured. Spandex pants reveal everything. To wear spandex is a privilege, not a right.
Same with yoga. Same with yoga pants. Just because you can fit in them doesn't mean that you should go outside.
Just because you can wedge yourself into them does not mean that they fit you.
So like you talk to your kid, and you know, and I'm sure Gabby is gonna come across some shit event at some point that you wouldn't want her to listen to.
Oh yeah.
But at least you would think she's going to feel more comfortable coming to you and talking to you about it, right? Or
if raised properly.
If you have that relationship with, like, which could be like, look, Dad, I'm listening to this. And you could be like, well explain.
If raised properly, hopefully she would be trying to turn him on to something that she likes.
Yeah.
Because she'll be proud of what she likes. This is one of the things that I keep saying to my kids is like, I really don't care what you say, what you do, what you decide. If you've made a decision, be proud of it. Own it. You made that decision. You literally made that decision. If you made a table, would you be proud of making that table? Because decisions are just something else that you've made. So be proud of every decision that you're going to make and stand by those. That you can be wrong. There's no saying that you can't be wrong, but be proud of the decisions that you made and own them. And then if you are wrong and that's found out, then cool. Own that too. You can be just as wrong as you were right, and you can own that and you can grow from it. And then the next time you're in that position to make that same decision, you will make the right one.
Holy fuck, I feel like we should be sitting on the ground here under the fucking lemon tree. Papa Colin over here is some wisdom and knowledge.
You know what was the best?
So can we guess who the old one of the group is here? Way to go, Buzzkill.
You know what was the best part about growing up in a home where parents didn't speak English? Is that I could blast NWA and Two Live Crew and anything I wanted, and it would have no idea what the hell they were talking about.
No.
But
and
I
it was
hope-
great.
And they probably love the beats.
No, but I think my mom once said, "They sound," when I was listening to NWA, I was like, they sound angry. I'm like, yeah, the police
they
do
kinda-
some
they
shit to
kinda
them. It's kind of, they have the right to be angry. She's like, oh, okay.
Yes,
That
Mom.
was it. Like, and it
That's
was
where
just,
you're like, yes, Mom. They want to fornicate with the police.
like, I never had a parent talk to me about any of the music I listened to because they never cared, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I said, my music to my parents, like, they weren't big into music.
Yeah.
They didn't give a shit about that. Whatever I was listening to is just like, whatever. As long as you cleaned your room, I don't give a shit what you're listening to. Like, it's like, fuck, right on.
Well, my mom was pretty cool about it. Other people in my family kind of gave me some grief sometimes and
Yeah.
called a lot of my music just shit music. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It is whatever. I hope that because of how I view music now
Yeah.
with Gabby, it won't be that way. Like, even if I don't like it, it's like, well, it's what you like, I guess. But
Yeah.
I'm also doing my best right now to try and expose her to everything. So in the car, we listen to a little bit of everything. And right now we're on a big, huge female kick.
Do you listen to
Gabby
Coldplay in the
said-
car?
No.
What if
So
she
not
comes to
every-
you-
I love my child.
So
what if
not
she says-
everything.
Yeah,
Can you,
no.
man? Can you imagine if she turned out to be the biggest Coldplay
Fuck
fan?
that.
Like,
No,
it was
she'd
like
be
her
out of the
favorite
house.
band.
She's coming to live at your place.
She's homeless.
Don't fucking put that in the universe.
Comes home with a Coldplay shirt. Oh man,
I'll light
You
that
know,
thing
I
on fire.
did suggest when we found
You don't
out
suggest nothing when it
No,
comes
no,
to my daughter.
when
I don't like where this is going. You have this little smirk on your face. Look at him fucking smiling like that. It's like, oh
when I found out Tash was pregnant, I told Adam that they needed to name her Karma. Just skip to the end. Just
Yeah.
call her Karma. Be done with it, because life is going to come back and kick him hard. As soon as I found it, not pregnant. Sorry. As soon as I found out it was a baby girl, that was when it was like, oh.
yeah.
Okay.
That thing run through my brain, and every day when I look at her, blonde hair, blue eyes. Holy Christ, I'm screwed. I guess, I mean, she listens
no,
to
no, no.
Coldplay. That'll be one of the least of my worries.
No,
at that
okay.
age, but
Put it this way.
Still going to heavily discourage it.
I know the gene pool from whence she swam from, and she's going to
Coldplay's
be
not in that gene
she's
pool.
going to be an Amazonian princess. She's going to be 6+ feet tall,
Yes,
and she
she
will
is.
not take a moment of shit. So you're not going to be in as much trouble as the people that she decides are going to be in shit.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Well,
I just want her to enjoy music.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of like these conversations. That's the whole
Totally.
point of this podcast and everything, is just to enjoy music, to talk about music, to learn about music, to share all these things.
Mhm.
Like it's music's everything in the world. I mean, it's the most important thing in my world is music, other than my girls. But like, music is the number one constant in my life. That's always been there for everything, whether I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm mad, or
Yeah.
broke,
same with me.
or I have money. Like, music is, it's there. And you know, when I was younger, not being able to go to shows, now that I'm older, I can go to shows. And
Mhm.
it's like, I love that. I love sharing it with my friends
yeah.
and everything. So I want to share that with my daughter, and that's why having all that stuff and trying not to discourage her from things, you know.
Well, and
Coldplay withstanding on
but
that one, but
getting-
expose her to
yeah.
everything. And when she said to me, like, girls can't play rock and roll, like only boys play rock and roll, I was like,
When else
huh?
said that?
Hang on a minute, honey, because
Let me introduce you to Queen Lita Ford here.
yeah, so and that's the thing. We listen to a lot of girls. Like, I show her Hailstorm and Lita
Mhm.
Ford and Vixen, and there's like so many bands right now. There's Nita Strauss is an amazing guitar. Like, so
Dear
many.
Lord,
things
introduce
that
her
we
to
can
Heart.
Show her, right? Heart, yeah. And she's like, oh, and it's like, yeah. So sometimes we drive around just listening to girls. Sometimes we drive around listening to country. Sometimes we listen to rock. Sometimes we listen to the pop station that. She likes that stuff too. She likes the beats in it. Sometimes we just listen to the kids station, and
Yeah.
like, that one's kind of hard, but she's a kid and it makes her happy. So like,
That's good that
alright,
she's
you know?
also got like a wide variety. Like, her taste is not
Mhm.
just
During the
one.
pandemic, we participated in Metallica Mondays. So
Yeah.
every Monday, Metallica would release a concert on their YouTube channel that has never before been seen, and at 7:00 it would come on. And we
Why am
made
I
supper
literally hearing
and
about this
watched
now?
it. You didn't know about that?
No.
All through the pandemic. Every
Never
Monday
even
night.
heard.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't even tell me.
Oh, sorry.
And you call me your
Well, I
friend.
didn't think it was a secret. You're way better at the computer than I am. Google some shit.
I'm so busy. I don't even.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we watched Metallica concerts all the time, and Gabby loved it. That was our thing.
Nice.
And this is when Tasha was up in Yellowknife, and when she come home, and we're watching it, and she's like, well, turn that down or turn it off. And Gabby was like, but Mom, it's Metallica Monday. I was like, fuck yeah, honey.
High five.
You know, high five. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sharing those moments those are important. So this PMRC bullshit with the parents groups and all that,
Yeah.
trying to interfere with that. When I was a child, I'm glad that Gabby doesn't have to go through that now with a group doing the same thing to her.
The funny thing is, though, I try to put myself in the position of understanding where the group like the PMRC is coming from, because ultimately they were fighting for something that they believed was right. I mean, welcome to controversy, right? There's two sides to every argument.
Yeah, something they believed in.
They absolutely believed in it, and they thought that, you know, this was something that was going to be endangering or making their kids worse. And so they were trying to fight it and trying to make it so that it was a more controlled, and I think ultimately trying to understand a little bit better. This is also the generation, keep in mind, going back to Ed Sullivan, that Elvis was told not to shake his hips when going on to the Ed Sullivan show, because shaking your hips is like the devil's movements. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. And we look at that now and we're like, whoa, that was pretty bad. I mean, that's
Yep.
and that's literally shaking your hips. We're not talking about dropping F-bombs in songs. We're talking about, you know, killing
When they
police
compare
officers
that
and all the
to
rest, right?
now, and it was like, oh, this music now is like, why can't you be more wholesome like Elvis and the Beatles? And it was like, wait a minute.
Elvis and the Beatles. Wholesome?
Your
Fuck.
parents fucking freaked out about those guys back then. The
man.
Beatles and their long hair.
Yeah.
I was like, I had hair down to my ass. I had long hair. The Beatles never had long hair. You
No, they
know,
had
like,
extended bowl cuts. They
Yeah.
were using the popcorn bowl.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
it was like just such different mentalities in different worlds. But the common denominator in that is how the music made those kids feel. The same kids that screamed for Elvis and the Beatles
Mm-hmm.
is you and I at Slayer, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's that same feeling and that same joy and excitement that
Were
we
you
get.
trying to show your boobs to Slayer?
I may have flashed one, just the left one though. I didn't want to make it weird.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Although Carrie winked, and that was kind of weird because she's pretty scary. Yeah.
Yeah. If Carrie King came and said, "Hey, Adam, yep, you're my bitch."
Yeah. But
I mean, if you're going to be somebody's
I'd be Carrie
bitch.
King's bitch. So, I mean, how bad can it be?
Now that you're thinking about this, it's like that could actually be really quite bad.
He does wear a lot of chains. Like big fucking heavy chains.
All right, so
Yeah, save me, Rob. Save me.
moving on.
What topic can we go to now? I need an adult.
Madonna had a lot of controversy with that Like a Prayer video when it came out with the whole cross thing and
Yeah, she
sexualizing,
turned that church on their head, man.
right?
Fucking
It was
pissed
great. That was
about
fucking awesome. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
And you know what? I like that song. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I like the song "Like a Prayer" by Madonna.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I loved what she did with it when it first came out
Yeah.
and how fucking crazy it made the church. I think that part I really enjoyed. But now as an adult, it's a catchy tune. I like the song. But yeah, that video, it's like
If it
everything
pisses
with
off
the
the
cross
church,
and
I'm
the-
behind it.
you know,
100%.
the implied masturbation with a cross and
Yeah.
all these things to it is like, even today, it would still
That's still
cause some
controversial.
pretty fucking
Dude, that's
some waves.
people are still talking about that fucking Sam Smith performance at the Grammys. He's dressed like the devil. He's dressed like the devil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just like, fuck off. Like, if you want to hate Sam Smith, do it because his music sucks, not because he's dressed like the devil. Like, you know? But yeah, it's.
Doesn't Sam Smith open up for Coldplay?
I have no idea.
He does in the virtual concert that I'm putting together for you. Pretty soon we're gonna have a full-on lineup, and then I'm gonna have to start sending out some. I'll have to hashtag people on the YouTube channel and get them to go to direct episodes so that they can see where things are at. They'll volunteer to put together a concert for you guys.
Don't start that. Because one day we're gonna have actual fucking listeners.
I'm putting this out to the universe.
To this shit, and then I'm gonna, because I can't not check. I'm gonna look at the comments, and there's gonna be all this stuff on there. Fucking Chris Martin will be on there spouting some dumb shit.
Chris Martin.
Hey, have you smelled my fucking wife's vagina candle?
NWA, fuck the police.
Such a
Body
good song.
count, cop killer. Like, these two, like, that. I think those two may be the two biggest controversial moments from my lifetime as a music fan that I remember the most. More so Cop Killer, because I was a little older when that came out. But I remember Cop Killer was. I remember going out trying to find the album with Cop Killer because I was like, "Fuck, I need to get this fucking song." It's like,
I was lucky enough to get it before people realized it.
Before there was controversy. Yeah.
There's two versions of it. There's the version with Cop Killer and the version without.
Yeah.
And I first heard about Body Count in Rip Magazine, which was a heavy metal magazine. Yeah. And they talked about Ice-T starting this fucking heavy metal band with all these other guys from California. And I was like, well, that sounds cool because I like Ice-T. So I went and I found the album Body Count, and I got it. I brought it home. And I listened, and I listened to Cop Killer before it was anything. And I didn't really think too much of it. I don't think I paid attention. I know that I had it. Yeah. But then the wrong person heard it, and it fucking went huge, and everybody made a big deal about it. And then it was like, oh, and then like you were saying, you couldn't find it anymore because the album didn't have it anymore.
Pissed me off because I wanted the album with that Cop. And the first time I heard Cop Killer too, I was like, whatever.
I still have that album at home.
Yeah, I have it too. Yeah. No, I did find it eventually. Yeah. But the first time I heard that song, I was like, yeah, whatever. Cop Killer. But then when it became like when the controversy started.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, everybody freaked out about Cop Killer and Fuck the Police. And, like, how can you have these artists singing this? How can you have these people doing this?
Very easily.
And it's like, but you're forgetting why they wrote the songs in the first place.
Right.
This isn't just, like, a bunch of dudes that are mad at the police and, like,
they didn't just wake up that morning and
deciding
say, what should I write about today?
This is in response to treatments of them.
Absolutely.
And it hasn't changed much.
No, it definitely hasn't changed much at all.
It hasn't changed at all.
Unfortunately, and you think we would have grown in the 20, 30 years since those songs came out. But
we have, to be blunt, we have. There's definitely movement in the right direction, but I mean, there's a reason.
The police still do some pretty fucked up shit that warrant those songs being written.
Most of the time.
Okay, but the thing that you're not recognizing here is the visibility of it is much higher because everybody now is carrying a camera that handles video in their pocket. Everybody. Yeah. And so anything starts to go even the slightest little bit sketchy, you've now got full HD video from 10 different angles constantly.
Yeah. Which is great.
30 years ago, you didn't. So the visibility now is much higher. Well, yeah, so the frequency is probably a lot lower, but because the visibility is so much higher. So while we're making improvements in that direction, you're seeing more of it anyways, right? So
that's true. That's a good point.
It's two different floating scales, and I think you cannot think that there's all these cameras in place and it's the same volume of it happening now than what was 30 years ago. I think if there was the same amount of cameras now, but 30 years ago, you'd be seeing it on every street corner all the time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think all the Rodney King stuff and everything else really brought a lot of that to light and really started to affect a lot of change and brought a lot of awareness to things. But again, that was one of the very first ones that was videoed. Yeah. And if it wasn't videoed, would it have affected even any? Would it even have gone anywhere?
Isn't videoed that we don't know.
Especially from way back then.
Yeah.
Now
back then.
Yeah, but now almost everything's videoed. The biggest issue they have now is that you pull out your camera and the cops will run over and start trying to take your camera and smash it.
Yeah.
So that there's no proof. Yeah. But then their body cams are subpoenaed. And so, like, eventually stuff is coming out. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. I mean, it could be that you're doing it on a street corner and you go back to that street corner afterwards and you go, oh, hey, Mr. Store owner, do you have outside footage? Here you go. Yeah. Cameras are so prolific. I mean, they're everywhere.
And much like we talked about with Freddie Mercury and Rob Halford coming out and how ballsy that was. I mean, for NWA to put that song out at that, that was a...
It was a
They were risking a lot of shit, right? Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, how many concerts got shut down? How many, NWA.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the movie?
It made it worse for them afterwards too, just being out.
Oh yeah.
It's in their own neighborhood, like in their own like yards and shit. Like it brought a lot of
it brought the heat down.
A lot of attention to them for it, but it also all needed to be said.
And it shined a lot of light on what was wrong with like what was being done by police. Like at that, like it brought awareness to a lot of people who listened to something.
And especially in those communities and stuff. And I think it's funny that three white dudes are here trying to figure out the problems of the black community in the 80s when they're getting beat and stuff. And we just
if only they were just getting beat.
Yeah, beat, murder, all this stuff. And like the reasons why those two songs were written are very valid reasons.
So do you think that the intrinsic desire, because let's face it, teenagers are the group of the population that want to affect change the most. Yeah. They're the most idealistic group because once you start getting older, you start getting put in your ways, you start getting used to certain things and so forth, right?
Against too.
Sorry?
And they're probably the most prejudiced against too. Like
it's partly because of the fact that they do want to affect change. So they're pissing off and offending all the people who are older than them because they want to affect change. Meanwhile, we're of an age group where we've technically accepted where things are. We're not trying to necessarily affect the same changes. But as the tool of that change, music is their voice. Yeah. Music is, the uniting thing. And if the controversy didn't exist within the musical sphere, would that change take shape? Is music driving that, especially the controversial portions of the music? Is it driving those necessary societal changes? And if the PMRC, for instance, was successful in puritanizing the music industry and preventing a lot of things and creating laws, there would probably be underground movements and stuff, but would society change anywhere near as fast? Is the music and the controversy that it inherently generates with it, is that part of what pushes us forward, right? Would we be where we are without?
Too, with being a teenager and having a voice, like prejudice is against it. Like I grew up with long hair and earrings, and I tell you, my life as a teenager was not easy just because of that. Like I got picked on at school by it, not just by other kids, but like teachers treated me like shit for it. They called me a dirtbag for things. The police all the time, like go down, living in Saskatoon, we'd go downtown. Security would follow me in the store. As soon as I walked in, they're right there all the time. Like the police would stop me on the road. Where are you going? And I was like, why? And it's like, because I got long hair. Is that why? Going into an airport, I always got pulled. I cut my hair. I haven't been pulled for security checks since my hair's been short. Not once. Not fucking once.
You don't think your age might have something to do with it?
Every single time.
Don't think your age might have a bit to do with it?
Well, probably too, but I wasn't that old when I cut it.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair enough. Although
on the way to my wedding, I got pulled. On the way home from my wedding,
after your haircut,
I didn't get pulled.
Yeah.
So
you cut your hair at your wedding?
2 feet.
The morning of.
2 feet came off.
17 inches.
Wow.
Yeah. But like I had to deal with that all, and I'm not trying to put my little shit on what those guys had to deal with, but that discrimination is in there just because of what you look, and then the music that I listen to. So not only having the long hair and everything, having the whole heavy metal attitude, we were all told like, you listen to Metallica, you're going to be a dirtbag, like you're just a shit, and that's it. Like you're going to be nothing. We got told that by our teachers, all the fucking time, all the time.
I don't think any of my teachers knew what Metallica was, so I didn't get told that.
But however, did you have long hair and dress in black and the eerie, like, you know what I mean?
I had long hair. I dressed in black.
You had a mullet.
Sorry?
You had a mullet.
When you and I met, I had a mullet at that point. But before that, I had long hair. I dressed up for Halloween like Gene Simmons in the total demon makeup and everything else. I mean, I loved my metal. So, it's when you're talking about discrimination, the thing that we need to realize is it doesn't matter what group you're part of. If you've experienced any discrimination, you can speak to discrimination. Growing up in the Yukon, I mean, white people were the minority. We've talked about this before. I grew up in an area where white people were not the most prevalent group by any stretch of the imagination. And so I was discriminated against plenty. And I was chased by gangs of guys who were intent on beating the crap out of me. And thank God I was a faster runner, because I would have been, I don't even know where I'd be at this point in time. Yeah. And I've felt persecution. I've felt those different things. Can I speak to it on the same level as your average black person? Probably not, but I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And nobody can say that I haven't, because I have. Much like you with long hair experiencing discrimination. I mean, and then there's Rob. I mean, he's Portuguese. I mean, that probably says enough.
Just look it up.
And,
and he doesn't have a thing to say.
No. He's just looking at the list like, how do I get out of this?
No.
He gets out by us ending the show, because we're about an hour and 15 in already.
Yeah.
These two are just going
trying to get it back on track. And I mean, the song, like the Fuck the Police song, was huge for what it was talking about, but also huge for like giving NWA a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, what's the saying go? Like, how does it, drawing a blank here.
You're trying to say.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as bad advertising.
Such thing as right? Like, like a lot of people's eyes were on NWA over that song.
Sell records, just like those stickers help sell records. You know, like when you were a band in the late '80s, you wanted that parental advisory sticker on your album.
Yeah. Well, up until the '80s, count how many albums actually had swears on them.
Not many, and even afterwards, there weren't many that had a lot of swears in them. Other than rap music is the most swearing.
But now try and find a song that doesn't have swear words in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's really hard.
You'd have to look at your boy Johnny Reed.
But even like the Tragically Hip have quite a few. I've been noticing like quite a few of their songs have swears in them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it's like, it's just, they're there. Sometimes they're there, and sometimes you don't notice them. Like, they're really good at hiding it, because you wouldn't think like
they don't even censor the swears in Tragically Hip on the radio, because they'll probably be like, nobody's gonna pay attention.
Nobody's gonna hear this.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Nobody pays attention to the words, anyways.
No.
Yeah.
But before we go, the last little thing that I have on the list that I kind of want to touch on is the Dixie Chicks song "Goodbye Earl" and Hardy's song "Wait in the Truck" that is out right now.
See, I'm not very familiar with the Dixie Chicks situation, because I'm not a fan, so I never really paid attention.
So the song "Goodbye Earl" is about the girls getting together and killing the one girl's abusive husband.
Oh, okay.
And "Wait in the Truck" is all about him standing up for the girl against this abusive thing.
Right.
So it talks about, the abuse towards women and protecting them. And it's funny how both songs end in murder. But I am absolutely okay with that, because I think any man who decides to raise his hands and hit a woman deserves to die. And that's just my opinion on that one, especially as the ones depicted in those songs.
As the father of a girl, you're going to feel a lot stronger about that one for sure. I mean,
but I felt that way even before her.
I am definitely not the raise the hand to a girl type guy. And I'll probably pick a fight with somebody who does. But I'm not the parent of, well, I mean, I've got my stepdaughter sitting, I suppose, but you've had Gabby since she was born. So for you've had that.
How that works.
You've had that intense, every single thing that she relies upon and protecting and everything else. Whereas Sydney came into my world when she was 10. Yeah. So I never had that initial early bonding, super protective kind of thing, right? Oh yeah. Yeah. It's my gut instinct is just not the same. For me, it's almost like a conscious thought as opposed to that gut instinct. I think that's parenting is a weird thing. You get conditioned as a parent. You really get they mold you as much as you mold them, and it's a weird, almost symbiotic relationship that you have with your kids, but it's pretty crazy. I you know what, when I first time I heard that song from the Dixie Chicks, I mean, I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. But then when you got Carrie Underwood and, smashing the windshields song and shit like that, and it's like, oh, leave the car out of it. Like, what'd the car do to you? Yeah. Like, hit him.
It is a silly song. Like, the video is really silly. And the song is kind of silly, but it's like the message behind it. And that was one of the first ones where they were like talking about women abuse out in public and making it known and having it out there. And I'm sure there's other songs that have touched on this subject as well. But those two songs, it just, as I was thinking, those are the two that popped in. One, the Dixie Chicks, because I know that song and it was huge and I like it. And the other one, like the Hardy song, is I love Hardy. He's so good at it, storytelling. And that song is such an amazing story. The way he sings it, the way he portrays it. He has this girl, Lainey Wilson, sing with him, and her voice is just amazing in the song. But it's still that same message and like talking about it and bringing it out there. And it's one of those things that we as men need to like always be better at it. And even if we don't, like, we need to make sure other men know that it's not okay. We need to teach our boys, like you have boys, right? You need to teach your boys how to behave, how to treat women growing up, how to not hit them and stuff. And like, if we have friends that, do it. It's like
the number one method.
Like,
the number one method is honestly best example possible. If that's what they see, that's what they do.
Yep.
Right. And so, I'm 100% absolutely. Yeah. I embody the best example of that I possibly can.
Yeah, we have to try to. So on that note, I guess get those in there. If you're listening, go listen to Hardy. Go listen to the Dixie Chicks. Go listen to NWA and Body Count and Madonna, Guns N' Roses, Ozzy, all these songs. Look up the shit. Find out why it's controversial. Listen to it. Think about it. And if you're making bad decisions in your life, change them. If the song hits you, change.
Oh, if you're making bad decisions,
better. Yeah.
Make decisions that you can be proud of. That's all I can say. And own your decisions.
If you're always do your prep.
I feel personally attacked here.
Actually, I go for the two of us.
You at least had something written down.
All right, that's it. Thank you for listening again, and we'll see you next time when we just talk about more music and ramble on about dumb shit. Bye-bye.
Ciao.